Dr. H. Wainhouse is the Distinguished Research Professor of Theology, Law, Culture, and Archaeology at Faith International University and Seminary in Tacoma, Washington. He and his wife Irina have taught and directed many tours in the Mediterranean and Middle East, including Israel, Greece, Egypt, Jordan, Italy, and Turkey, particularly with the Biblical Archaeological Society. Dr. House has taught biblical and theological studies at several universities and seminaries during a teaching career of over 50 years and has written 150 articles and 50 books, including the Evangelical Dictionary of World Religions, The Jesus Who Never Lived, Exposing False Christs and Finding the Real Jesus, the Zondervan Handbook of Biblical Archaeology, Israel, the Land and the People, an Evangelical Affirmation of God's Promises, and editor of the Nelson NKJV Study Bible and Nelson New Illustrated Bible Commentary. Dr. House is the general editor of the Evangelical Exegetical Commentary Series, 44 volumes, with logos, Faithlife. It is the knowledge amassed from these experiences, along with the assistance of biblical scholars at a variety of universities and seminaries throughout the world, that provides the information contained in his latest project, the House Visual Study Bible Online. Thank you for joining Archaeology in the Lands of the Bible with Dr. H. Wainhouse.
And here we go again.
Yes.
Dr. House is in the house, and we're going to be wrapping up this series, this part of the series. So with that, Dr. House, take it away.
Oh, let's...
You're going to have to turn your mic on first, though.
You didn't hear my smart remark. I said, where do you want me to take it?
Oh.
Well, yeah, it wasn't that smart because it wasn't on.
We didn't get the honor.
I accept that. I'll be a good boy. Now, well, we're going to finish up a section tonight, and then you're going to load that in, and then we will continue on with the Passion of the Christ. We'll discuss that. I was going to go into a lot of the Shroud of Turin arguments, but I decided to not separate those from the resurrection arguments. And also, I will show you just a brief thing about it. But when we have a chance to come on to another session sometime in the future here, I'd like to tackle the whole question of Christ and the issue of the resurrection, what that means as far as timing, questions of what impact that has on Christianity, matters relating to the many other subjects regarding his nature. There's just a lot of things to talk about. And so we'll wait to that point to do that. And at that juncture, I'll be discussing the arguments that we have for not only the resurrection, but also for the Shroud of Turin. So tonight we'll go a little different way, and we'll come back on another show and do it. Okay,
so let's time out 1 second because I know you have a new personage in the room. Briefly. And who's that?
Can you hear us, Brad? You need to have your microphone. Can you talk?
Yes.
There you are. Okay. And Dick Hiss is here tonight. He's been, no doubt, doing tennis and swimming. So,
all right. Good to have you. All right, Wayne, take it away again. And your smart remark is going to be?
That you need to give us the program here we can look at. You
want everything. You just want it to snap of your fingers, like right now.
What do you think I'm in this business for? Everything.
That's right.
There you go.
Okay, Jesus and biblical archaeology. Isn't it great to understand that we have archaeological evidence for Jesus? But when we say archaeology, we're talking about issues that are more physical in nature, but actually we also have tremendous literary support for Jesus. Mm-hmm. Not only the Gospels themselves or the New Testament, but also for other sources that are within the period of 100 years or 200 years, which makes it very, very close. Because if you were to say, for example, did Aristotle live? Did Plato live? Did Herodotus live? Did Did some of the emperors live? You know, you start asking questions, and people would say, well, so obviously they did. But there's so little evidence for all these people I've talked about and more than what we have for Jesus.
Right.
And yet a lot of people don't acknowledge Jesus as being someone who truly lived based on the literary material, the archaeology, so many other factors. And yet they'll embrace other people that are just a smidgen more, or actually just a tiny bit they have instead of a whole lot. So we have a lot of stuff on Jesus. So Jesus and biblical archaeology we have to talk about. Now, I wanted to do just a couple of things real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but go ahead and move us down to the week before Passion Week. I think to give you some chronology would help. Because I didn't realize this until not too long ago. There I am, by the way. That's the Sea of Galilee called Yom. In Hebrew, Yom is a lake there.
So that's the Mount of Attitudes. Oh, Beatitudes. Okay.
It could be attitudes.
Oh boy, what a crap.
Sorry, Wayne.
So this is the Mount of Beatitudes,
Ah,
not attitudes.
okay.
So, I'm just there. Now let's move. The thing is, we're going to talk about the Passion Week, but how close was that to Jesus actually still ministering up in the north? And then after that, moving to actually Bethany on the other side of the big mountain there. We have the place for olives, the Mount of Olives. That is actually just a short time before then the Passion Week, and yet we sort of tend to think these things are a long period of time. They weren't.
Right.
So turn off to, go here a week before Passion Week, just to go down for me, would you?
Go down.
Did you see that? Okay, you can keep moving. I don't need you to watch those. Okay, now we really didn't go much into that, but that is actually looking back at the other angle to see from the Sea of Galilee where the Mount of Beatitudes, where the people were there to hear the various teachings of Christ. And you have Jesus doing a lot of talks on those mountains around in the Galilee. That's fairly close. That's a very short walk from there to walk down to Capernaum. So it's not far away. Let's continue on. Now, I know you've already seen this, but there's a reason why I put it, is because Jesus is still hanging around the area of Galilee. Now, this is an area that's fairly far up. It's moving toward Mount Hermon from here. You can be where you are, which is the location of the Caesarea Philippi, it's called, and Pontius. Now, let me give you some quick learning. I didn't know this until a few years ago, but Pontius is the name of it, and the Arabs call it Bonius because they can't say the P. No, seriously, they don't say P's in their language. So Pontius is difficult to say, so they made it Bonius. We usually know it as Caesarea Philippi. And so you can see the mountain there. Under this mountain goes a very, very strong waterway coming from the north that comes from Mount Hermon all the way down to the river, the Jordan River. This actually goes into Pontius or Caesarea Philippi. You can be there and see it come through, and it keeps on going south and begins to go back and forth a lot. The River Jordan. That goes into the Sea of Galilee, which goes again into the River Jordan, finally into the Salt Sea, or what we call the Dead Sea. So that's the land situation. Now, this right here, you have a big hole. You can't see anything in there right now. But that's a place that actually a temple was built to Augustus Caesar. And behind that temple area, they have found some things that look like it may be similar to what we have called the Gate of Hades in places in Turkey, for example. And there's a few other places. So I'm not going to argue that point. But if you go, no, sir, there are different opinions. If you go across there, you had idols you had a place to the god pan in. It was a very big worship place. So it's an ideal place that Jesus said, "Who do men say that I am?" And of course, you know the story of that. Some say you're this, some say you're that. And then he says, "But who do you say that I am?" Speaking to Peter.
Right.
"You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." That incident occurred here, and that's so basic. That matter of fact, I came out with a book, as many of you have seen, called "The Jesus Who Never Lived," exposing false Christ and finding the real Jesus. Subtitles are very important. Use the title to get attention, and it's a subtitle to explain it. But the fact is that a lot of people have Jesus as they talk about and worship, and that Jesus they're talking about does not in any way agree with the Jesus we know from Scripture. So they created another Jesus than the one that actually existed. And that's what the book is about as I go through chapter by chapter. I got the inspiration of writing that at this very place. I usually meditate or pray or wait for the group and just think, and ideas came to my head. This book came to my head at this point. The next year at the same place, I got the idea of the House Visual Study Bible, because I thought I love to take people to Israel, and I do a real strong work to try to be sure that they understand the settings and the architecture and the land and the practices and so forth. And it hit me, I can't always bring that many people, but I can try to take it to them if I do the same thing. So that's why I started doing the study Bible out of this experience. Anyway, that gives you an introduction. Let's keep going forward. That's looking at it again from a different angle. These are all aerial shots. You can see the big hole now. Keep going. You can see the structures there.
Yeah.
A little different look from the air. There's another one that's sort of funny here. Keep going. This is on top. Very few people see this. Those are actually people down there.
Yeah.
Those aren't ants.
They're not bugs.
So this is looking at it from top. And I've often wondered, what does it look like if I climbed up there and look on the other side? So I have pictures of all that stuff now. But this, you can see the location. These were buildings there that were used to worship in and so forth. This was a worship site, Caesarea Philippi. So Jesus' statement to the apostles is highly significant. Because there's a contrast now between the pagans and the false religions and who is actually Jesus. He is Jesus, the Son of the living God.
Amen.
So we have a very important statement out of here. Now, this occurred just shortly before Jesus started heading south and going down to a place we're going to look at in a moment called Bethany, which then is the place right on the other side of the Mount of Olives, very close to the place you go into the Jerusalem temple and the city itself. So we'll keep moving from here. Any questions, feel free to ask. Jesus and Lazarus, Passion Week and the Resurrection. The reason for this title is that he left, and I didn't realize that until I started looking at the chronology carefully. He was not long in the north before he actually came down here to Bethany. And remember, there was this issue about Lazarus being sick and dying. Jesus did not get there in time to heal him. Boy, he took his time. Why would he do that to one of his friends? The reason why is stated in the passage that we deal with Lazarus, because Lazarus became a sign of resurrection, similar to what Jesus, not the same, but similar to Lazarus in reference to Jesus' own resurrection a week later. So these things sort of come in together as you start studying them. Jesus and Lazarus. Passion Week is right after that, after he raised him from the dead, and then the resurrection of Christ, which we'll talk about later, follows that. Continuing on. Any questions, feel free to ask. First of all, then, is the resurrection of Lazarus. He's our first player, so go on. Now, what you're looking at is the town of Bethany. I would suggest, by the way, if you are in Israel and you're on your own and you have a rental car, if you want to go see Lazarus's place, don't. Because the only way in the city in a car has one long street. It's only one way in and one way out, and the whole place is a Arab community.
Oh.
I didn't feel quite as safe as I did
Mm-hmm.
some other places. There were no secondary options for you.
Wow.
But anyway, this gives you a little look. This is an older picture at the top right, but you can see one that I picked up that shows people in an older garb. This goes back many years, obviously. But notice how the temple, how the resurrection site is here. This is for Lazarus, obviously, not Christ. Then go to the left, and you'll see that if right across from that now is a church. The church that relates to what they do in the ancient world. Everything you can find in the Bible that you can put a church next to is what you do. You create your church to have your biblical site or biblical event. And so this is actually right across from where Lazarus was buried. And I'm going to take you in a moment just to a little bit more. These are different settings over a period of time, obviously. And what you have here is stairs, though. And when you go those stairs, you go down and you go to the left, and you'll see the place actually that Lazarus would have been put into at that time period. They didn't use what we see in the first temple period and the early centuries before Christ. We find the new way of burial was one in which they let people basically their flesh come off. They would put them in an ossuary, a box, and that box, then you'd put the bones and so forth after the flesh, after a year, after the flesh is dissolved, and then you put the bones in with the people. Anyway, that's looking at the way you do here.
So prior to the ossuaries, they just left them in there?
Well, I don't know if I'll have a chance to show you that or not. No, I can't do that even. Okay, yes, I'll give you a quickie on this.
Right.
The first temple period, the second temple period. Okay.
Right.
The period before the first century, before Christ, which goes back, several hundred years, they used to bury people. You'd put a person into a setting where you had cutouts, and they had like little beds they put people on. And the beds, you even had a place for your neck and on the stone, and you'd be laying there out, you're dead. And no, sir, I'm just telling you.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting.
And you had family tombs and all sorts of tombs like that. And you'd lie a person on one, there'd be another one this way, and you lie him on this one.
Multiples.
And going this way. So you had three people you could fit in to a room that had a tomb. That's how they built these things.
Gotcha.
But they also had a big hole in the wall to the side that was dug out. And the reason why you had that is that as it became family tombs people had, what you would do is as people died from time to time, you would take people into the family tomb. And so you would, first of all, when you put a person in, you'd let them sort of put the spices and so forth on them.
Right.
And then the next year, a year later, you would have what they call the second burial. Everybody did this. And you'd have another funeral. And you'd have the little jars that women would use to cry into and put wax in them and so forth. I've got some at the house here. They're easy to get. And then you would do all of this, but then by the year, all you have is bones. And then take the bones and put them underneath. And when you read in the Old Testament, it said they were gathered to he was gathered to his people. It's talking about taking the bones and putting it underneath and making a place for the next guy who just died. That's how they worked it in the first temple period.
So like a pit or something.
Yeah.
Some kind of pit.
In the second temple period, the day of Christ, they didn't follow that process at all. What they did, they would they would put them into niches around.
Right.
And if you go to my study Bible, look it up, and you'll see examples of this stuff. And even my son-in-law drew a really nice graphic of what it looked like. But you'd put people into it. You'd wind them up, so to speak. You put them, and then you would have the oils and so forth and on it. Then you would put them into the area, and after they had for a year, they would dissolve, and then you would put them in an ossuary. That's basically the way you did it.
Right.
Remember, I haven't gone into a whole process with you.
Right.
You had a few days before people actually went through the process. I just said, when a person died, you put them in there, put stuff on them where they wouldn't smell too bad, go away and come back after a day or two, and you check on them, and then you would put them into these niches. Jesus never got that far.
Right.
He rose from the dead before he needed to be put into a niche. And he didn't dissolve. He didn't begin to go through that. So that's how they did the ancient world of burials and so forth.
Cool.
But this is what they would have done with Lazarus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, to show you just another angle, I showed you the top left one and the right one. You saw it from a different angle with me. What I wanted to do this picture mainly for is the bottom. See, that is the niche I'm talking people were put into.
Right.
And they were left there until they were ready to be ultimately put into what would be an ossuary, a bone box. That's what was done after a period of time. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now you can say that my AI work is not as good as Favorite McMullen's. Favorite McMullen, as you know, is my pastor. And he's a wonderful teacher, and he's a lawyer. He's Faber and I are good friends, and I'm sure glad to have him on the program with us. But he has gone into AI, doing all sorts of applications and devotions for me, and he puts all these kind of really cool shots, these paintings inside here. I thought I had talked. He explained to the AI what you want. You sort of explain it.
Yeah.
Visualize it, and then AI goes in and supposedly makes it like you want. I didn't ask AI to put Lazarus in a hole here.
I saw that hole. I wondered how'd that happen.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I explained everything I knew. I had a hardest time to try to get that rolling big enough. It's not quite as big as I wanted. I did, however, get Mary and Martha over there crying.
Oh, you got that, yeah.
And in the group out there, this is my tremendous artwork through.
Wow,
you did a great job. I'm
not
proud
bad though. We can still visualize it.
But there you have Jesus standing there with Lazarus come forth, right? And now I got him outside here standing in the hole. I don't know. There may have been a hole there. I wasn't there.
Right.
Anyway, this is at the beginning of this period that Jesus has by raising somebody from the dead. Can you see how that would be sort of significant that Jesus has raised a person from the dead at this point? And this actually becomes a major point because the people that were against Jesus now were against Lazarus. The text tells us in the Bible. They were even now trying not only put Jesus to death, they want to put Lazarus back to death. Now I thought, what kind of thinking you got? You want to find a dead man who just came back from the dead and you want to kill him.
Put him back in the...
These guys are really not good thinkers.
Back in the cave. Wow.
These are the people that were against Jesus next week that we're talking about. This is actually occurring in Bethany. And in Bethany, you had just a short walk Jesus had to make over the mountain, right into the Mount of Beatitudes, at that time, they had a walkway like a bridge, which people could walk across to the temple. And so you have Jesus walking over into the Mount of Olives, across and into the area of the temple to begin to gain attention and obviously bring people against him that were found in the some of the rabbis, some of the people obviously who were Sadducees. Okay,
right.
Dr. House, can I add one thing here? This is your last run for your series. He's heard this because he was in the sermon, but we discovered together that Bethany means house of suffering. It's house of affliction, which is really, really interesting because Lazarus's real name is Eleazar, which means God is my help. And it was nice to develop a sermon that all of us are in a house of affliction. Remember, the sisters were anxious that they would come quickly, and Mary's name is bitter. That it's our tendency to become bitter when God doesn't do things as quickly as we want him to do them. So I just thought I'd add that in, since this is our last night in this series, that we are all in that house of affliction, and our only hope is Jesus.
Amen.
And he comes and he raises us from our own kind of spiritual death, not just giving us eternal life after our physical death, but gives us life while we're alive. So thank you for giving me 45 seconds there, but I just can't watch this Lazarus tomb without bringing this up. It was just a real, I guess, something that I had not known and really made an impact on my life.
Good. Thank you very much, Pastor.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I'm just working you in now because I think it's fascinating that Jesus is doing these miraculous things, being identified as the Son of God, coming down to Bethany, raising somebody from the dead. People there, after Lazarus was getting so much news response from everybody, Jesus is there, who brought him back to life. You know, these Sadducees, particularly, and even some of the Pharisees, who have been really ticked off that Jesus brought someone back to life that does not fit the Sadducees' viewpoint.
Exactly.
And basically, who were the major people within the temple,
right,
or as being in charge, who are the ones mainly, not the Pharisees, but largely the Sadducees, bringing Jesus before Pilate, or eventually. So all these things sort of come in together. I hope you can see what I'm talking about. It's a unique way in which it's put together. Let's move to the next slide. So the week begins with Jesus a few days earlier raising his friend, and I'm just basically explaining here what I'm talking about. They're scheming to kill Lazarus. Many were believing in Jesus because of the miracle of bringing people back to death. I'm thinking these people have rocks in their head. So I would never go against a guy who could do that.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, next. What is known as Passion Week begins on Sunday, ends the following Saturday. By the way, according to where you are in the year and whether you're using a lunar or a solar calendar, all these things have to do with the variation a little bit on the days in which you celebrate that each year. I don't know if you've ever done that. I'm not real good at it, but the point of it is to try to go through and try to figure out, okay, things have changed since last year, since 10 years, since 100 years. And so we're going back and trying to figure out what was happening during that time, because they needed to have the crucifixion done and over with in order to be able to celebrate the Passover. Jesus had already had, with a group of people, a Passover celebration. Now, you may wonder, how could they be concerned about doing one on one day like Friday and doing another one on another day like Thursday? You see a right.
Right.
In the upper room on a Thursday when it's time not for Passover yet.
Yeah.
This is something you have to check out. Harold Hoehner was helpful to me in this area. Harold Hoehner wrote a book called The Life of Christ, I think it is. And he goes into the fact that there is a Sadducee and there is a Pharisee celebration of the Passover.
Makes sense.
And so that you actually have Jesus, he is actually involved on Thursday evening on a true Passover that is one used by the Pharisees and not the one that is used by the Sadducees the following day on Friday. Now, have you heard that idea before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense, because you've got to figure out, why was Jesus there a day before the Passover started? He wasn't. He was following the ones the Pharisees followed. So anyway, hopefully that helps a little bit. But these dates change from year to year and from different portions, some in early April, late April, and all so forth and so on.
Right.
Okay. So here we go. Sunday, March 29th, AD 33. This is a view that I followed from a person who works in the area of, hopefully it's correct, but it was something like this, that you had a,
Oops.
boy, that was quick, had a Passion Week timeline. See, if 8033, it said, if you were living in 8033, it would be this way. If you were to be there 10 years later, it'd be another time.
Gotcha.
But Sunday, March 29th, Palm Sunday, is a triumphal entry. We're going to look at that. Monday was the cleansing of the temple and the cursing of a fig tree. You might wonder, why did Jesus go into a city and curse a fig tree? Yeah. What's going on here? Doesn't he like figs? I mean,
Yeah.
Then Tuesday, March 31st, then debates with religious leaders. In the temple, he made a lot of enemies. Who was basically in the temple area?
What was that?
It wasn't the Pharisees. The Pharisees were the teachers of the law.
Uh-huh.
They tended to do other things. Matter of fact, if you were to look at Pharisaic theology in general, you'd find it to be fairly orthodox with what was held by the early church and Jesus and the apostles and so forth. They tended to follow the teachings from the scripture. The Sadducees had a whole new, different way of looking at things. So he was in the temple area, irritating. That might be the word.
That's a good one.
Irritating the Sadducees and the ones who were the leaders of the Sanhedrin, which were largely Sadducees. Okay, so you have the cleansing of the temple, curse of the tree. That has to do with the fact of talking about Israel, I think.
Yeah.
Tuesday, it's debates with religious leaders and teachings and parables and warnings. Wednesday, Silent Wednesday. Jesus probably went back to Bethany to be with Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. That seems to make sense when you look at the chronology. But it's also interesting that Judas is now beginning to plot to betray Jesus. Okay, let's turn another slide. Now, the only thing I've got to say here is that Jesus is going to come into Jerusalem on a charger, big horse, or a donkey.
Donkey.
Why would you pick a donkey over against a charger, a big horse, a war horse?
The difference between peace and war. The animal represents.
Jesus was a prince of peace, not the prince of war, per se. You should also know that Solomon, when he became king, also rode a donkey. Look at David's, and I'm not being critical of David so much here, but King David, look at his lifetime of being a king and what happened, and look at Solomon and what happened. Solomon brought basically peace all over the Mediterranean area there, all the countries around Israel, places in Jordan, places like all these countries became peaceful. Solomon made deals with them and so forth. Solomon was a man of peace. David was a man of war, and that's what the Bible talks about. He had a lot of places to try to deal with problems and eventually bring unity to the country. So,
cool.
Now here's a triumphal entry. I think I did this one. This looks better.
It's more legit, huh?
I maybe should have made that donkey higher. I don't know. But I'm not an expert in this. But that's what I did for this. That you have Jesus coming in on a donkey instead of a war horse, and that's important. People are putting down things. The one who's coming in the name of the Lord, right there, Passion Week, day 1 of the Passion Week. I'm not going to read all of these things to you. You sort of know. You've got a Bible, you can check them out. Okay, next. So I've already said that, so we'll move on. Now, you have next a Thursday. Well, this is when you have the Last Supper. Does anyone know where the Last Supper was held?
In the upper room? There was an upper room.
Yeah, there was an upper room, yes. And one of the disciples, I think Mother was there. And so you had a place of a Passover meal. We're going to look at it in a moment. By the way, the Passover meal is going to look different than what you're used to seeing. You'll see in a moment. But probably is more accurate here. Now, you're going to see after that Thursday, you're going to see Friday and Saturday and Sunday. That's when things really begin to happen. So let's move over to the Passover meal. Well, that's talking about Passover week. So that was Monday. For some reason I got that out of place. There's no need for me to go into this. I've already talked about it. He irritated all these guys and he made enemies all over the place.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Keep it moving. I'm going to skip past that. There's a fig tree, if you haven't seen one before. And so whatever happens to that fig tree, anybody know?
Which
It withered.
It withered, yeah.
Withered.
It died. Oh yeah.
Shriveled right up.
You think there's some teaching value in the fact of what Jesus was doing? That he
Absolutely.
cursed a fig tree and then you have a fig tree die.
Oh, yeah.
Also not real happy with the Jews who basically rejected him. And that's really not so much of every Jew. Remember, the people heard him gladly in the Galilee. This is what's going on around Jerusalem in the leadership of Israel.
Right.
And by the way, I know when we were doing the Nelson Study Bible, we debated some things on how to translate or the notes and how to do things. And one of the decisions we made is that when we talked about, when the text says the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, that terminology is not talking about all the Jewish people. It's talking about the Jewish leadership. And when you check all the ones where it says the Jews did this, the Jews did that, doesn't seem to be talking about the people who heard him gladly. It's the one who were afraid about the Romans taking away their power or something happening like that. So let's keep moving the slides.
Cool.
Now, Tuesday, we've already said that we've got, what I want to tell you about Tuesday of Passion Week is that Jesus expresses remorse for the destruction of the nation. But there's not a lot going on Tuesday, but things are being set up for after he comes in, set up for the fact that he would be eventually surrendered. In the plan of God, he would be surrendered by the leaders of the people to the Romans. And this was none of this was outside of God's plans.
Amen.
Keep going. Again, these are other things happen. I just want to give you a shot. See that Temple of Jerusalem? I had that built. Is that okay?
Nice.
As soon as the temple's built, Jesus will already be here. No, actually, I have a picture of that from an old place that used to have the model of Jerusalem.
Right.
And I put that into this site where I took away the Dome of the Rock.
Nice.
Now, after I'd taken away the Dome of the Rock, I was actually in Cairo, Egypt. And a guy was looking at my video, looking at my PowerPoint, and I was going through it. And he said, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, it's just a building that was built there." And you're going to tell this Muslim I destroyed his dome.
Yeah.
I didn't clarify this too much to him, but that gives you an idea about how the temple would have looked. Wednesday, again, nothing much happened. So Wednesday was rest day. Let me tell you something. Jesus needed to get his rest because he knew what he was going to do. He knew what was going to happen. So it was a day of spending time with Lazarus and Mary and Martha, and to enjoy their fellowship. They were very close friends to Jesus. We think of Jesus so much, as a teacher and roaming around and doing all the things he did. He lived a real life too. He had people that he loved and spent time with. And Mary and Martha and Lazarus were very important. So we find him going back and getting that kind of connection. Continue. Now, I'm going to have a bunch of these kind of things, and I'm going to move through them fast because I have different things to say with it, because I didn't know exactly how to go through and use one and for different things. I just want to give you a feel. See where Bethany is, and look at Bethphage. That's on the way. And then the Mount of Olives, and then leading into the temple. Can you see that? Sure. That's sort of what we're talking about. It wasn't a long distance.
Now, one of the things that we might want to mention, because you can't really see that from this, you don't like have a real topography here. This is actually a valley in here between the Mount of Olives and the Temple Mount.
That's correct.
So you got to walk down this down this hill to get there and then back up.
And they call that the Kidron Valley.
Oh, the
Right.
Kidron Valley.
And that becomes important because this area is going to split in two one day,
Right.
what the Bible says. And so this becomes very important. I should tell you, though, this isn't fully accurate. It seems to be that there was actually a bridge built at one time here.
Mm.
And it's no longer there. But
Well, there's a gate over here someplace, too, that's also bricked up.
it is. Matter of fact, if where you're pointing, point back to where you were pointing to.
Right here?
Just point all up and down there, all up and down. All that right today is Muslim grave sites.
Right.
That's where Muslims are basically buried. And part of the rationale was that they thought that might hinder Messiah from coming back through that gate. I'm serious. This is
Yeah. That's amazing.
that is a way to keep Messiah from coming back, just in case the Jews were correct.
Yeah. I think it was Solomon the Great that closed up the.
Yeah, I would
Excuse
know.
me. Yeah, it was Solomon. Yeah.
Oh. Anyway,
the
that
caliphate.
field. But those, by the way, those are they're not mountains like Mount Hermon, but they're, it's not just a little flat place. You got to walk up it, and so forth, and you hit a peak and go down. What it does show you that you don't have a long ways to go. You could travel and visit somebody probably in an hour of walking, maybe a little more. I don't know. I haven't done it. So, okay, continue. This is a look at the Last Supper. Now, what I want you to observe here, and you can read this if you want. I'm not taking time to read all of these things. But notice how low the tables are. That's very standard. Now, that's the one drawn back in the top, but the one at the bottom here was actually at a place called Ein Karen. It was a biblical, it's a outside museum kind of thing that was in an area of Ein Karen in Jerusalem. And they had all sorts of really fascinating things about things on Jesus. And I'll show you one more in a few minutes. Mm. But this is what you did. People they didn't sit in chairs around like we do. You actually sort of laid down a little bit and ate with one hand. That's generally what you do. And the food would be there in front of you. Of course, this is a Passover meal, which has certain requirements that are connected to it. What's significant, though, is that what's going on at the table as far as talking. Now, Jesus has already washed people's feet at this point. That happened before sitting at the meal. So I didn't go into John 13. But if you look at Jesus standing up and you have a person to the right and a person to the left. Now, the person to the left of Jesus lay on Jesus's breast or chest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that was an important character in the story. The guy who is probably at this side is probably Peter or someone like that. And there's a reason why. Because he asked this young disciple questions to ask Jesus. And he has to talk across the room.
Right.
He needs to get the answer from someone who is there close to Jesus. But guess who is probably to the right of Jesus?
John.
No.
Not
John the Beloved, the young teenager. John was probably a teenager at that point.
Yeah, it was the youngest, right?
So it's not Peter, it's probably Judas. Because remember, Jesus knows what Judas is going to do. Says, what you're going to do, go ahead and do it.
Yes.
So he's talking to Peter there. You have John on the other side who's laying against him saying, "Who is it, Lord? Who is it? Who's the person that's going to do this?" Because Jesus said somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to turn me in. I'm going to be arrested. So they said, no. And Jesus said, the one that puts the sop in with me is the one who is the guilty one. So where's Jesus? Who's going to be doing it with him? It's not going to be John,
No, Judas. Yeah.
so it's probably Judas. You understand the logic?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were in close proximity.
Yes. Let's continue on. Now, this area right here is the Garden of Gethsemane, but I'm not going to take any time with it. This is at the flat area right next to the Church of All Nations. You have to actually go out of the door here and start upward to ever to really climb high in the Garden of Gethsemane. But this gives you a feel for the kind of trees and so forth that are there. But I'm not going to take any more time with this. I have some things, Judas betrays him with a kiss, and all those things that occur that night.
Right.
One thing that comes through my mind, though, is this. I was working on a paper with my wife, and we were working with a question, and I started working through this with her. Jesus, his veins, actually, it happens. You can form blood that comes through your skin. That actually, there's a term for it. I don't remember it now.
Oh yeah.
But the point of it is, Jesus 3 times comes back and prays, saying basically, "Isn't there some way I can escape this?" Which tells me that being afraid of something and something that's very trying is apparently not a sin. Because Jesus says, "Isn't there some way?" He's not saying to God, the Father, "I don't want to do it, I'm going to leave." That's not what we're talking about. He's saying, "Isn't there some way we can do what needs to be done here?
Right.
Other way."
Right.
Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yes.
It's not a show he's putting on. He's really, really in pain.
Yeah. It's a stressful time.
Yeah, and he says, "Isn't there some way I can do this?" But let me tell you something. Any Jew staying around Jerusalem would have seen what crucifixion means.
Yes.
The Romans made a point of letting people look. Put people on stakes, on the way around doors that came out of the city. You'd see people hung up.
Yeah.
Jesus had to look at that and say, isn't there some way I can accomplish what I need to do without going through the crucifixion and the scourging? I think he did that, and I don't think it was a sin.
No. No.
Preservation of our life is something God builds into us. We think it's crazy when people commit suicide pretty well because, you're supposed to preserve your life. So anyway, I'll let you look and think on that because that sort of came to me as I was working through some stuff.
Interesting. So the term for when you sweat blood, so to speak, is called hematidrosis.
Yeah, I couldn't think of what
Something
it was.
like that.
Try.
Hematidrosis, yeah.
Good pronunciation, James.
I try, bro.
Okay, let's keep going. Anyway, I just wanted you to think about that point. I mean, it was a struggle. Who wants to have somebody do all those things to it? It hurts a lot. Romans could not care less about pain and anything else when they did these things. Well, anyway, so Jesus comes in before the various people, Annas the high priest and Caiaphas and others. And I just really think this is an interesting study. I wish I had time to do it, but go through and look at the various people that Jesus talked to and what he said back to them. Peter, Pilate, all these people he responded to. He had good responses. And one thing that's interesting to me is when he was before, I think it was Annas in Mark 10, if I'm correct on this, when Jesus says, "Are you truly the Son of the Blessed One?"
Oh, yeah.
We want you to tell us plainly now, are you the Son of the Blessed One?
Yeah.
By the way, that's a euphemism because you don't say God.
Right.
Something else. And it's fascinating what Jesus did. He came out and said, "Yes, I am." Yes. And then he followed it up with this. He says, "And you will see the Son of Man," which is only said by Jesus to him by himself.
Right.
He never is called Son of Man. He calls himself Son of Man, looking back to Daniel chapter 7. The Son of Man who comes before the Ancient of Days. So he says, "Yes, I am, and you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory."
Yeah.
He says, you know what? You're trying me and you're finding me guilty. There's a day that I'll be trying you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting kind of interchange that was going on.
Yeah.
Well, we see various people that we've gone before, and I'm watching my time very much. Passion Week, you find all the terrible things that happened to Jesus. And I want you to know, if you take the time to study out Roman practices of this, they were cruel.
They were
Terrible. I mean, you'd want somebody to put a gun to your head and shoot you or something,
Mm-hmm.
because it was terrible, terrible, terrible pain.
Yeah.
And
Pull your hair out, stuff like that.
Yeah, Judas, we're not going to Judas and so forth. There's all this thing going on, the mocking and the crucifying and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple little things out of this I want to point out. Jonathan Edwards, you're familiar with the name?
Mm-hmm.
He says something very interesting one time, one of his writings. He said, a simple glance at the cross is sufficient to save. It's not a hard task. You can make it one, but it's not. A simple glance at the cross is sufficient to save. And you know why I said that? The man who was on Jesus's, I don't know, left or right, who says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. He says, you'll be with me today in paradise.
Yes.
That's a statement. It didn't take a lot of fighting. It didn't take a lot of activities. There's no works involved.
Yeah.
Just his recognition of who Jesus is, that when you enter paradise, he says, you'll be there. So I think that's a statement. The other statement, I need my slide. I don't know where the thing went, but
it's hiding.
Hello.
There he is.
Yeah. So you have these various things are taking place, but I think that's a fascinating thing that man looked at Jesus and could see in Jesus something that did not deserve what he got.
Mm-hmm.
Yet he suffered, and maybe he had heard things about Jesus. I don't know, but Jesus said, "You're with me today." I think that's a wonderful statement. Notice the statements of Jesus: "Forgive them; they don't know what they're doing," and that's true. They did not know what. I guarantee, if they had known, these soldiers had known who he was and what he could do, they would have gone home. They called it sick for work.
Called it a day.
Because remember the one that says, surely this man was a son of God?
Right.
Probably son of a God. Probably didn't have that much understanding. But nonetheless, this kind of interactions going on.
Mm-hmm.
Moment, behold, yours should be your son. That's to Mary. Of course, that's John, who was a young man at that time, was given the charge of Jesus' mother at that point. This is one of the more difficult ones. Remember what I said in the Garden of Gethsemane? He's saying, is there any other way? Is there any other way?
Mm-hmm.
Why does he say to God? He's looking at his father and he says, why have you forsaken me? I don't know what you want to do with that. That's a hard one to me. Because he surely knows he's the son of God. God is his father. He knows why he's on the cross for the sons of humanity, people of the world. But why does he add that? Why have you forsaken me? As though God had actually forsaken me.
They say the explanation that I've heard is that it's referring back to Psalm, is it 21?
22.
Or 22?
Yeah. It may be. That's a good statement, by the way. And it may be, and I don't know, Pastor Faber can correct me on this, but it could be that all he's doing is wanting to fulfill the passage given in the Bible.
And there's a custom. There's a custom in synagogues even today where the first verse of a chapter will be read, and then the whole congregation silently reads it, and then they'll read the last of it. And so some scholars believe, my father would be one of them, he was a Hebrew scholar, that Jesus was praying Psalm 22 on the cross. And it wasn't that he was trying to fulfill prophecy. He is the fulfillment of prophecy.
Right.
And so that's why that term, it's actually speaking the words that David was inspired by the Holy Spirit to write.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say.
Well, and another aspect of it, I would suggest, is like happened when he read in a temple, and he stopped and he said, "Today this is being fulfilled in your hearing."
Right.
That he's used this to say this is being fulfilled in your observation.
Right. It's like a
So-
bell going off.
Was
Right.
the Son on the cross forsaken by the Father for a moment in order to bring forth forgiveness on the cross for the sinners of the world?
Well, Dr. House, I'll remind you of your own teachings. Jesus, that you've taught me. Jesus was all man. No, I mean this in all seriousness.
Yeah.
Wayne's told me a lot of times that, Jesus was all man,
Yes.
he was all God.
Yes.
Right.
And we know he was all man because when he was in the temple, it said that he grew in stature and learning. How does God learn anything? Well, because if Jesus is the embodiment of fully human and fully man, maybe we're seeing glimpses of that fully human
Possible.
part of him there on the cross going, God, how can you forsake me like this?
Right.
Sure.
As-
I mean,
as well
think about it. This would be the only time that the human Jesus had been separated from God since his birth.
That's
Right.
right.
Right. Exactly.
And maybe this also relates back to what was said in the garden.
All of that.
Sure.
That makes sense, yeah.
It
He's
could be
He's a true human and a true God.
right. I would say D, all of the above.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of the above.
You have
So the humanity of Christ has to grapple with what he's going to be experiencing as a human.
Right.
Yes, abandonment.
Mhm.
Yes.
he's two persons and one deity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, at the end he says, "I thirst." I had a sermon I preached on the great misunderstanding when I talk about the words being spoken at the cross. One of these days I'll get a chance to preach that.
That should be interesting.
And it's a great little study that I put together. But anyway, I thirst. We know that.
I was wondering though, in number 3 there, was he like from South Israel there?
Yo,
Yo, son.
yo, son. That's true. That could be, or it could have been Irish.
You're taking up precious time. Let's move on.
We'll give you the 2 minutes or seconds.
Go on.
It says stop here.
I don't care what it says. Go on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now I'm going to do some quick things here. This is all quick, so we're not going to take time. I just want to show you some shots in reference to the days and what it looks like. Look at the city going over the Mount of Olives over there on the other side, and the city wall. Continue on. I'm just going to show a few shots.
Okay.
Cool.
I haven't got time to read all these things. Keep going. Go on. I'm not going to take time to do all this right now.
Oh, nice picture.
Now there's a fig tree. Is that right?
Looks like it. Yep.
Oh.
Looks like a fig tree.
Okay, curse a fig tree. I always thought of teaching them. I think it was not a permanent curse of a sort. It just shows that people that depart and what happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going. I'm going to keep it going. I just got a few more things to do here.
Yep.
That just gives you a close up in that shot. We'll keep going. That's how the temple looked.
Very
That
magnificent.
shot. Unfortunately, we got something in the way up there.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand the Iranians are going to try to improve their shooting because they've been shooting so far. They've missed it twice.
Yeah.
Seriously, they're shooting him inside a block from this place.
My goodness.
Wow, isn't that incredible?
Anyway.
Amazing.
I thought, hit it. That'd be great when you start over. Okay, keep going. Just keep it. I'm going to keep it moving here because I want to get to another point. Keep going. You've already seen that. I know. How do
We already saw that one.
how
Oh,
that,
we're going backwards?
you're going backwards, aren't you?
I don't think so.
Hopefully not.
No, I'm going backwards.
Oh, there was 2 of them.
Okay, I don't know. Keep going. I don't know. Did you use mine or the one I sent you second?
So stop here. That's where I was. Okay.
Okay.
We did that. We did that. We
Okay.
did that.
Keep
Now
it
we're
going.
here.
Keep
Now
it.
we're here. We did that. We
Take
did that.
Via Della Rosa. as well.
Oh, the meat.
Keep going.
Dolorosa.
So that's more doubles that we just missed. Okay.
Keep going. We're going to keep it on. We're not going to take time on some of these things.
Oh, look at that.
We do some of this before. All I want to show you there is the fact that you have three major one at the top is a temple. The one on the right is the place possibly of where Jesus was tried,
Oh, there we go.
place of
Mhm.
where the Roman
A pilot.
would occupy. And the one on the left, that's the area in which you would move into the area of probably the burial of Christ. It's not very
Mm.
far, like a lot of people think. Keep going.
Mm.
So just so everyone else knows what they're looking at, this is a model of what Jerusalem would have looked like in
Yeah.
the first century.
This is at the Hebrew Museum.
Nice recreation. Yeah.
Yeah, keep going. Now, we're going to move through this fairly fast too. I just haven't got time for it tonight. So let's just keep moving. What I want to show you basically, look at the Garden of Gethsemane, look at the Court of the Gentiles, look at the north with the Antonia Fortress, Herod's Palace, House of Caiaphas, the upper room. See where all these things are very close. The
Yeah.
Garden Tomb at the top left is not the place at all. Golgotha is actually at this time outside the city walls. 10
This
years
area.
later, 10 years later, it was not outside, it was inside. But at the time of Christ, it was outside. So these are the areas. Pull the Siloam at the bottom that you saw before. Okay, let's move on. I won't take you but a few minutes over this. Continue. No. You've seen these before.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
I'm not going to show these to you again. I was going to talk more about them, but keep going. Okay, traditional. This is what I want to show. These are the stations of the cross. If you haven't
Right.
been to Israel, this is what people go and they pray at each of the stations. I have no problem with that. I don't think this is a station. I don't think these are the actual direction of things. But nonetheless, it's a spiritual experience for them. It hasn't been going on but a few hundred years now. This doesn't go back to the time of Christ.
Mm.
Okay, Station 1, condemned to death. That's where the upper room was. Keep going. Carries his cross. The next section. Continue. Jesus falls the first time. So they have each of these set out.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, he fell under the link, and the Roman soldiers basically had somebody take it over.
Mm-hmm.
Meets his mother.
Yeah.
Simon of Cyrene is the one who helps carry the cross. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
Veronica wipes the face of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
These are all places that they think of things happen. He falls the second time. Continue. Meets women of Jerusalem. He tells them to be praying for them, the children. Not so much. The 8th station. Jesus falls a third time. He's carrying this on his back. This is hard, and this is after a beating with cat o' nine tails. I mean, that was lots of loss of blood, a lot of
And
pain.
the punching, all kinds of beatings.
Yeah, stripped of his garments,
Mm-hmm.
nailed to the cross, and dies on the cross. Now, keep going a second. Keep going. I'm not going to go into that. Keep going. Keep it going.
Keep it going.
I've got some archaeology to show you here real quick. Let's move. Just keep it moving until we get to the archaeology. Well, that's slow.
Mhm.
Okay. Just keep it moving. I don't know why that's all there.
Again.
Keep it going.
We're in a loop.
Yeah.
Now, I want to show you something there.
What? Here?
Perspective.
Yes.
The current place is viewed as where the cross is. A lot of people is separated by a long distance from these other places, but it's likely that the Antonia Fortress is not the place of the judgment. It's at the bottom right here, and the actual crucifixion was probably straight up the line almost. Okay, continue.
Oh, look at that. Fancy.
Things. I don't know why it's happening so slow. Just keep it moving.
PowerPoint mode.
You've already done this, so you just keep it.
Okay, we've seen this.
Yeah, we've already done this. Keep these going. These are just records of the judgment at the time. Keep going. You've already seen all these.
The steps. Yeah.
I don't know why they're doing this. Come on. Crucifixion. That's not. These are things I want to show you archaeologically. Okay, they found it in an ossuary. Oh, here it's first. This right here is a thing you found on the hill up there in Rome where the emperors were, in a museum, and it talks about this man, I think it's Alexander or something like that, who has a donkey's head and he's on a cross.
Yeah.
This says Alexander, I think that's his name, worships his God, and he think it's a making fun of Christianity, and that they worship a donkey god. Okay, that's what that's at. That's in the museum in Rome. That's another example of it. Keep going. These are all sorts of places, things that people have done.
Sure.
Just keep it moving. And I know you've seen these kinds of things at places. Most of these are wrong, but this one is not too bad. This is Tissot, a very famous painter. Notice he has it through his hands. That's not right. It was probably the hand in Greek, kar, that actually is a little bit up your arm on either side where you have two bones. You would put the nail between the two. You put it, and it would tear out immediately.
Yeah, around the wrist area, right?
That's an example of one that would never be done that way. Keep going. That's actually in Cairo. In the one of the Christian area of the city. I'll not keep that going. We have people.
Well, there's the nails on that.
I want to, and that's not a bad example. That's a good possibility. By the way, I want you to know the Romans couldn't care less about modesty. That's not,
of course.
Keep moving. That's an ossuary. They found in this ossuary, the next thing you're going to see, that right there is the first thing we found.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually a bone that found of a person who'd been crucified, who was placed in an ossuary, and the nail as it went through it. Keep going for a second, we'll be done. That gives you an idea. That actually is from a medical magazine I picked up, and it shows you where the nail would have gone and why it was important that way. Continue. That's an example of the nail again through a bone. Yeah.
That was a heel, right?
That's another. Oh, that may have been a heel. You're right. I'm sorry. You're correct about that. And keep moving. The kind of nails they used.
So yeah, there are various ways to put it. Yeah.
They have to keep the guy on the cross, so they want to make sure it's stable.
Right.
Now, I want to say something about this. This is from a man by the name of Salvador Dali. I've had this for years. For 30 or 40 years, I've had this, I guess. And I've got to tell this to you. This is a picture of Jesus that he did that I think is so phenomenal. It's all these other people have been looking up at Jesus on the cross, right? Guess who's looking down?
Oh, the Father.
God is looking on his Son. It's what Dali tried to say in this. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful picture. Of God has love for his Son.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, this is the last things I'm showing you. When we have a chance to get together again and I can go back and go with you over this, these are the kinds of things that are in these slides that I'm putting together on the Shroud of Turin. So the last thing here is the importance of resurrection of Christianity. If the bones of the dead Jesus were discovered tomorrow in a Palestinian tomb, all the essentials of Christianity would remain unchanged. Thus says Rudolf Bultmann, which is a terrible viewpoint.
Yeah, apparently.
He was a Lutheran pastor,
but
a liberal. And he holds the same kind of views of people who say science gives us the answer, and if it conflicts with theology, we throw out the theology.
Right.
And here's some other examples. We'll talk more about the Shroud of Turin later. I apologize for taking over this much, but I had to sort of get through it.
Good job.
Thank you so much,
That was
Doctor.
good. Very good.
It's good to have all of you. I look forward maybe to some time in the future to have you again. And I want to go into the whole discussion, and I didn't show it on the slide. I have the whole discussion talking about the resurrection, the proofs, the arguments, and everything on the question of the resurrection.
Very good.
So we'll hope to do that in the future.
All right.
Dr. House, can I ask you a real quick question? It's not theological related.
Okay, if it's quick.
I mean, it's not archaeological. It's just quick. I think it was on Wednesday, you were talking about cursing the fig tree. When he goes back to the temple and he's confronted with the chief priests and elders, I can't remember the resource I came from, but they said that chief priests and elders is an all-encompassing statement that would include the high priest and the temple, the captain of the temple, the priest of weekly course, and the priest of daily course, and then you'd have the others, the overseers and the treasurers, and this could literally be hundreds of people he would have been confronting potentially in that group at the temple. Is there any significance to that large of a group that he's confronting about, who gives you this authority, or is that just
It would be hard to know exactly how many people were involved in that, but I have to say this: that remember, it's not the Pharisees we're largely dealing with here on these questions.
Sanhedrin?
The Pharisees are another issue when Jesus was teaching. The people that were actually confronting and fighting against Jesus was the Sadducees, who largely dominated the Sanhedrin,
Right.
and you have the chief priests and others who are doing their jobs. And so Jesus is obviously talking about those individuals when he talks about it.
Right. Yeah. So, but the size of that group is insignificant to the story.
We don't know how many were in that group exactly, to my knowledge.
The potential size of it. Okay. That was it.
It's not a handful, but it's maybe 30 or 40 people, whatever. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. All righty. God bless each of
Sounds
you.
good.
Thank you.
All right, all. We're going to end the stream.
And the stream.